The iron gates of the royal palace loomed before Celeste Silverwind, like the jaws of destiny itself. Rain fell in cold, relentless sheets, soaking through her threadbare cloak and plastering her golden hair against her pale cheeks. She trembled, not from the chill that seeped into her bones, but from the weight of the decision that had brought her to this threshold. Behind those towering walls waited Darius Wolfguard, the Alpha King whose name alone made warriors bow and enemies flee. And she, a rejected Omega with nothing left but her life, had come to offer him precisely that. Her breath misted in the autumn air as she clutched the letter in her hand, the parchment now damp and fragile. The debt her family owed was impossible, crushing, born from her brother's foolish gamble and her father's desperate attempts to save their crumbling pack. When the collectors came, they spoke of the Alpha King's mercy as something rare and terrible, a gift wrapped in thorns. "Pay with gold," they said, "or pay with blood." Celeste had neither gold nor the strength to watch her family destroyed, so she would pay with herself. The guards regarded her with cold indifference as she approached, their silver armor gleaming despite the rain. One held up a gauntleted hand. "State your business, Omega." The word was spoken like a curse, and Celeste felt the familiar sting of shame that had followed her since her own pack had cast her out. Too weak, they said. Too submissive. A liability in a world that demanded strength. Her engagement to Thomas Blackpaw had been her last hope for belonging, until he publicly rejected her for another, leaving her with nothing but the tattered remains of her dignity. "I am Celeste Silverwind," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "I have come to settle the debt of the Silverwind pack. I come to offer my life in service to the Alpha King." The guards exchanged glances, something unreadable passing between them. The taller one gestured toward the gates. "He has been expecting you." The word sent ice through her veins. Expecting her? How could he know? The palace interior was a cathedral of stone and shadow, lit by torches that cast dancing orange light across walls adorned with the pelts of conquered enemies and the banners of fallen kingdoms. Celeste's footsteps echoed in the vast corridors as she was led deeper into the heart of the wolf's den. Servants paused in their duties to watch her pass, their expressions a mixture of pity and curiosity. She kept her eyes forward, her chin raised despite the fear that coiled in her stomach like a serpent. They brought her to a pair of massive wooden doors, carved with images of wolves in various stages of the hunt. The guard knocked once, a sound that reverberated through her chest. "Enter." The voice from within was deep, commanding, a rumble of thunder given human form. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from and how old you are. I hope you enjoy the story. The doors swung open, and Celeste stepped into the throne room. It was smaller than she expected, more intimate, with a great hearth roaring at one end, and windows that overlooked the storm-ravaged mountains beyond. And there, standing before the fire with his back to her, was Darius Wolfguard. He was larger than the stories claimed, his frame built of pure muscle and barely contained power. His black hair fell past his shoulders in thick waves, and even from behind, she could see the breadth of his shoulders, the way his presence seemed to fill the entire room. He wore dark leather and furs that spoke of both royalty and the savage wildness that lurked beneath civilization's veneer. Celeste Silverwind. He spoke her name without turning, and the sound of it on his lips made something in her chest tighten. The Omega who would trade her life for her family's mistakes. "Yes, Your Majesty." She lowered herself to one knee, her wet cloak pooling around her on the polished stone. "I come willingly. I ask only that my family be spared the consequences of their debt." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the distant howl of wind against stone. When Darius finally turned to face her, Celeste's breath caught in her throat. He was beautiful in the way a storm was beautiful, all sharp angles and barely leashed danger. His face was strong, masculine, framed by a dark beard that only emphasized the intensity of his gaze. But it was his eyes that held her captive, golden and burning like molten amber. ancient and knowing in a way that made her feel simultaneously exposed and seen for the first time in her life. "Rise," he commanded, and she obeyed, her legs unsteady beneath her. He moved toward her with the fluid grace of a predator, circling her slowly, assessing. Celeste stood frozen, aware of how small she must appear to him, how fragile. The scent of him reached her, pine and smoke and something wild and masculine that made her omega instincts flutter with confused awareness. "Do you know what I do to those who fail to pay their debts?" Darius asked, his voice soft now, almost conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I have heard the stories, Your Majesty." Stories. A hint of something that might have been amusement touched his lips. "Tell me, what do these stories say?" Celeste swallowed hard. "They say you are without mercy, that you crush your enemies and show no compassion to those who cross you. They say the Alpha King's justice is swift and absolute." He stopped in front of her, so close now that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. The heat radiating from his body was overwhelming, making her acutely aware of how cold she had been. "And yet you came anyway. I had no choice. There is always a choice, little Omega." His hand rose and Celeste braced herself, but his touch was surprisingly gentle as he brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. "You could have run. You could have let your family face the consequences of their actions, but you chose to offer yourself instead. Why?" The question, asked with such quiet intensity, brought tears to her eyes before she could stop them. "Because they are all I have," she whispered. "Because I have already lost everything else. My pack, my home, my future. If I can save them, then perhaps my life will have meant something after all." Something flickered in Darius's golden eyes, there and gone too quickly to name. He stepped back, turning away from her, and the loss of his proximity left her feeling strangely bereft. "Your family's debt is substantial," he said, moving to a table where a crystal decanter and glasses waited. He poured 2 measures of amber liquid, the motion precise and controlled. 50,000 gold pieces, accumulated through gambling debts, failed business ventures, and desperate loans from my treasury. A sum that would take 3 lifetimes to repay through honest work. Celeste's heart sank. She had known it was bad, but hearing the number spoken aloud made the impossibility of it real. "Then take my life," she said, forcing strength into her voice. "It is all I have left to give." Darius turned back to her, holding both glasses. He offered one to her, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Their fingers brushed, and that strange flutter stirred in her chest again. "To desperate decisions," he said, raising his glass. Celeste raised hers in mirror, and they drank. The liquid burned down her throat, warming her from the inside out, and she had to suppress a cough. "I do not want your life," Celeste Silverwind. Hope and confusion warred within her. "Then what do you want, Your Majesty?" Darius set his empty glass aside and moved to the windows, staring out at the storm. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating his profile. 7 years ago, I was not yet king. I was simply Darius, second son of the Wolfguard line, not expected to inherit, not bound by the weight of a crown. I was hunting in the Whisperwood when I was ambushed by assassins from the Blood Moon Pack. 3 of them, all skilled fighters. They poisoned me with silver-laced arrows, left me to die in the snow. Celeste listened, transfixed, not understanding why he was telling her this. I should have died that night. The poison was in my blood, burning through me like liquid fire. But someone found me. A young girl, no more than 16, traveling alone through those dangerous woods. She should have been afraid of me, should have left me to my fate. But instead, she stayed. His hand pressed against the cold glass, and Celeste could see the tension in his shoulders. She built a fire, though her hands were shaking with cold. She used herbs she had gathered to draw out the poison, sitting with me through the night even as I raged in fever dreams. When dawn came and the poison finally broke, she was still there, exhausted but alive, her blue eyes filled with a compassion I had never known. Celeste's heart was pounding now, a memory stirring in the depths of her mind, hazy and half-forgotten. Before I could ask her name, before I could thank her, there were shouts in the forest. her pack searching for her. She ran, terrified, and I was too weak to follow. I called after her, but she vanished into the trees like a ghost. All I had left was this. Darius reached into his shirt and pulled out a delicate silver chain, from which hung a small pendant in the shape of a crescent moon, adorned with a single sapphire. Celeste's blood turned to ice. I have kept it all these years, searching for the girl who saved my life, the girl with golden hair and blue eyes, who wore this necklace, the girl who gave me a future without asking for anything in return. He turned to face her fully now, and the intensity in his gaze made her knees weak. Tell me, Celeste, do you still have the scar on your right palm, from where you cut yourself gathering thornwood to feed the fire? Slowly, trembling, Celeste looked down at her right hand. There, silvered with age but still visible, was a thin scar that ran across her palm. The memory came flooding back, vivid and overwhelming. The woods. The dying wolf shifter who had transformed back into a man as the fever took him. His golden eyes, wild with pain and fever. Her desperate need to help, driven by some instinct she could not name. It was you, she breathed, the words barely audible. The man in the woods. I thought I had dreamed it. No dream, little Omega. You saved the life of your king. Celeste's legs gave out, and she sank to her knees, not in supplication but in shock. All this time, all these years of suffering and rejection, and she had carried within her the knowledge that she had once done something truly good, something that mattered, even if she had forgotten the details in the haze of her own trauma. Darius crossed to her in 3 long strides, kneeling before her so they were eye to eye. He reached out, taking her scarred hand in his much larger one, his thumb tracing the old wound with a reverence that made her breath catch. You offered your life to save your family, he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. But I have owed you my life for 7 years. I have searched for you, Celeste. I have turned over every stone, followed every lead, desperately trying to find the girl who showed mercy to a stranger in the woods. And now, when I had nearly given up hope, you walk through my gates offering yourself as payment for a debt. Tears spilled down Celeste's cheeks, overwhelming and unstoppable. I do not understand. If you knew it was me, why did you not tell me immediately? Why make me afraid? A shadow of pain crossed his features. Because I needed to know if you had changed. If the cruelty of the world had hardened your heart the way it hardens so many others. I needed to know if you would still choose sacrifice over self-preservation. If your compassion was still real. And now you know? Now I know. His other hand came up to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle despite the calluses earned from sword and claw. Now I know that the girl who saved me still lives within you, despite everything you have endured. What happens now? Celeste whispered, barely daring to hope. Darius's smile was slow, transforming his stern features into something breathtaking. Now, little Omega, I repay my debt. Your family's obligation is forgiven, erased as if it never existed. You are under my protection, now and always. And if you will have me, if you can find it in your generous heart to trust me, I would ask for the honor of your company, to know the woman you have become, to give you the life you deserve. Celeste's mind reeled. This was not the punishment she had expected, not the cruel fate she had resigned herself to. This was something else entirely. Something that felt too much like the fairy tales her mother used to tell her before everything fell apart. I am nothing, she said, the words reflexive, born from years of rejection and shame. I am a rejected Omega without a pack, without worth. You are the Alpha King. You could have anyone. Darius's expression hardened, not with anger at her, but at the words themselves, at whoever had taught her to see herself this way. You are not nothing. You are the woman who chose compassion over safety. You are the reason I live and breathe. You are everything, Celeste Silverwind, and I will spend however long it takes proving that to you. He stood, drawing her up with him, and before she could fully process what was happening, he swept her into his arms as though she weighed nothing at all. Celeste gasped, instinctively clutching at his shoulders. Your Majesty. Darius, he corrected, carrying her toward a door at the far end of the throne room. When we are alone, you will call me Darius. Where are you taking me? To chambers where you can rest, warm yourself, and recover from your ordeal. Tomorrow, when you are refreshed, we will talk more. But tonight, you need care. He carried her through corridors that blurred together, servants bowing as they passed, until they reached a suite of rooms that took Celeste's breath away. The bed alone was larger than the entire room she had shared with her sister, draped in furs and silks that gleamed in the lamplight. A fire roared in the hearth, and through an open door, she could see a bathing chamber with a large copper tub already steaming with hot water. Darius set her down gently, and immediately servants appeared, women with kind faces who began fussing over her, helping her remove her soaked cloak. These women will tend to you, Darius said, stepping back but not leaving, his eyes never leaving her face. Anything you need, anything at all, you have only to ask. This is your home now, Celeste. You are safe here. As the servants led her toward the bath, Celeste looked back at him, this fierce king who had shown her more kindness in one night than her own pack had shown in years. Darius, she said, testing his name on her tongue, and she saw the way his eyes flared at the sound. Thank you. His smile was soft, meant only for her. Sleep well, little Omega. Tomorrow everything changes. The next morning arrived, wrapped in golden sunlight that streamed through windows Celeste did not remember opening. She woke in the massive bed, cocooned in warmth and softness, and for a long moment could not remember where she was. Then the memories of the previous night came flooding back, and she sat up abruptly, her heart racing. It had not been a dream. She was in the palace. Darius Wolfguard, the Alpha King, had recognized her as the girl who had saved him. He had forgiven her family's debt. He had called her everything. A gentle knock at the door preceded the entrance of one of the servants from the night before. A middle-aged woman with warm brown eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. Good morning, my lady. I am Mira, and I have been assigned to your service. The king requests your presence for breakfast in the garden when you are ready. My lady. The title felt foreign, impossible. But Celeste nodded, allowing Mira to help her dress in clothes that had been laid out, simple but beautiful, made of fabric softer than anything she had ever worn. The dress was the color of moonlight, bringing out the blue of her eyes, and when Mira had finished arranging her hair, Celeste barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked almost pretty, almost worthy. The garden was an oasis of green and growing things despite the autumn chill, protected by high walls and warmed by some magic she did not understand. Darius stood when she entered, and the sight of him in daylight was somehow even more arresting than it had been in firelight. He wore simpler clothes today, dark trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with old scars. His long black hair was pulled back, and his beard was neatly trimmed. Celeste. The way he said her name, with such warmth, such pleasure, made something flutter in her chest. Come, sit. You must be hungry. The table was laden with more food than she had seen in months. Fresh bread and butter, honey and jam, eggs and bacon, fruits she did not recognize. Her stomach growled audibly, and she blushed. But Darius only laughed, a rich, warm sound. Please, eat. You are far too thin. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Celeste found herself relaxing incrementally, the tension slowly bleeding from her shoulders. Darius watched her with those golden eyes, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but with a contentment that suggested he was simply happy to have her near. Tell me about yourself, he said eventually, pouring her tea from a delicate pot. I know who you were 7 years ago. I want to know who you are now. Celeste set down her fork, uncertain where to begin. Her story was not a happy one, not filled with achievements or triumphs. But something about Darius's patient gaze made her want to try. There is not much to tell, Your Majesty. Darius, she corrected when he raised an eyebrow. After my mother died, my father withdrew into himself. My brother tried to fill the void with gambling and drink. My sister married and moved away. I tried to hold us together, but I was always too weak, too omega. When Thomas Blackpaw showed interest, I thought perhaps I had found a path forward. But he rejected me publicly, said I would bear him weak children, that I was an embarrassment to consider as a mate. Her voice had gone flat, reciting facts that had long ago stopped hurting in the sharp way they once had, settling instead into a dull ache she carried always. After that, my pack saw me as marked, tainted. They cast me out, and I have been living on the edges ever since, doing odd jobs where I could find them, trying to help my family from a distance. When the debt collectors came, I knew I had one thing left that might be worth something. Myself. Darius's jaw had tightened as she spoke, and when she finished, she saw fury in his eyes, cold and controlled, but unmistakable. "This Thomas Blackpaw," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "He still lives?" "I assume so. He married an alpha female from a neighboring pack. I heard they are quite happy." "Not for long." Celeste blinked. "What do you mean?" Darius leaned forward, and the intensity of his focus made her breath catch. "I mean that any man who would treat you with such cruelty, who would reject a treasure and call it worthless, deserves to understand his mistake. I will send word to his pack. They will know that you are under my personal protection, that any insult to you is an insult to their king." "That is not necessary," Celeste protested, even as her heart swelled at his protective rage on her behalf. "I do not care about revenge. Perhaps not. But I care about justice, and I care about ensuring that you never again feel like you are anything less than extraordinary." He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The touch sent warmth racing up her arm, and she found she could not look away from him. "You saved my life, Celeste. Not because you knew who I was or what I might one day become, but because you saw someone suffering and your instinct was to help. That is not weakness. That is the truest strength I have ever witnessed. Your compassion, your selflessness, these are gifts that make you more valuable than any alpha female could ever be." Tears pricked at her eyes again, and she blinked them back. "You barely know me. Then let me know you. Stay with me, Celeste. Not as payment for a debt, but as my guest. Give me time to show you the life you could have here, the respect you deserve. And if, after you truly know me, you wish to leave, I will not stop you. But give me this chance. Please." How could she refuse? Where else did she have to go? And more than that, something in her responded to him, recognized him in a way that went beyond logic or reason. When she looked at Darius, she felt safe for the first time in years. "I will stay," she said softly. "For now, I will stay." The smile that broke across his face was radiant, transforming him from stern king to something younger, freer. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her scarred palm that made her shiver. "Then let us begin." The days that followed unfolded like pages in a book Celeste had never dared to read. Darius was true to his word, giving her space while simultaneously showering her with attention that was both overwhelming and addictive. He joined her for meals, talking with her about everything and nothing, listening to her opinions as though they mattered. He showed her the palace, introducing her to his staff and his council with a pride that made her blush. He walked with her in the gardens, teaching her the names of flowers and telling her stories of his childhood, of his brother who had died and left him the crown he had never wanted. On the fourth day, Celeste woke to find a book on her bedside table, one she had mentioned wanting to read during breakfast the day before. A single white rose lay across it, still wet with morning dew. Her heart squeezed as she lifted it, breathing in the delicate scent. When she went to thank him, she found Darius in his study, surrounded by maps and correspondence. The moment she entered, his stern expression softened, transforming into something that made her breath catch. "You remembered," she said, holding up the book. He stood, moving around his desk to approach her. "I remember everything you tell me, Celeste. Every word matters to me." His hand came up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. The touch was electric, sending warmth cascading through her body. She found herself leaning into his palm, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment, and when she opened them again, his golden gaze was burning with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Darius," she whispered, not even sure what she was asking for. "I am trying to go slowly," he said, his voice rough. "Trying to give you time to adjust, to choose this freely. But Celeste, having you near and not being able to touch you the way I want to is the sweetest torture I have ever known." Her hand rose to cover his, pressing it more firmly against her face. "Then touch me. I want you to." Something dark and hungry flashed in his eyes, but he held himself back, instead leaning down to press a soft kiss to her forehead, then her cheek, hovering near her lips, but not quite claiming them. "When I kiss you properly," he murmured against her skin, "it will be because you are sure, because you know what it means, what we are to each other. I will not rush this, no matter how much I ache for you." The restraint in his voice, the trembling in his hand, told her how much that control cost him. And somehow, that made her want him even more. But what surprised Celeste most was the duality of him. In council meetings, which he began inviting her to attend, Darius was every inch the alpha king. His voice could crack like a whip, his decisions swift and absolute. She watched him negotiate treaties with neighboring pacts, his intelligence sharp as a blade, giving no quarter. She saw warriors bow before him, enemies tremble at his name. He was fierce, unyielding, a force of nature given human form. Yet with her, he was different. Gentle, patient. His touches were soft, his smiles frequent. He brought her tea when she was reading, draped furs over her shoulders when the evening grew cold. He asked her questions and remembered her answers, incorporating her preferences into every aspect of her daily life. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after her arrival, a storm rolled in, fierce and violent. Thunder shook the palace walls, and lightning split the sky. Celeste had always been afraid of storms, a fear born from a night when she was a child, lost in the woods during similar weather, certain she would die alone in the darkness. She was curled in her bed, trying to be brave, when her door opened. Darius stood in the doorway, wearing only sleep pants, his long hair loose around his shoulders, his chest bare and gleaming in the lightning flashes. "I felt your fear through the bond," he said quietly. "Even though it is not yet complete, I can sense your emotions. May I stay with you?" Celeste nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. He crossed to her bed, sliding in beside her, and pulled her into his arms. She went willingly, pressing her face against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. "I have you," he murmured, his hand stroking through her hair. "You are safe, little Omega. I will let nothing harm you, not even the storm." "Tell me something," she whispered. "Distract me." And so he did. He told her about his childhood, about learning to shift for the first time, and getting stuck halfway between forms, terrified and confused until his brother talked him through it. He told her about his mother, who had been gentle like Celeste, who had taught him that true strength included compassion. He told her about his fears when he became king, the weight of the crown, the loneliness of leadership. "I have been alone for so long," he admitted in the darkness, his voice vulnerable in a way she had never heard. "Surrounded by people, but alone in all the ways that matter. Until you. You see me, Celeste. Not the king, not the alpha, just me. And I have never felt less alone." Celeste tilted her head back to look at him, and in the next flash of lightning, she saw the truth in his eyes. He was falling for her just as surely as she was falling for him. Without thinking, she reached up and traced the line of his jaw, feeling the softness of his beard beneath her fingers. "I see you," she promised, "and I am less alone, too." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm, then to each of her fingers, the gesture achingly intimate. They stayed like that through the storm, wrapped around each other, talking and simply being, until Celeste finally fell asleep in his arms, feeling safer than she ever had before. When she woke in the morning, he was gone, but a note lay on the pillow beside her in his strong, slashing handwriting. "Thank you for letting me hold you. Thank you for seeing me. You are becoming essential to me, and it terrifies me in the best possible way. Yours, Darius. With her, the fearsome Alpha King became simply Darius, a man who looked at her like she hung the moon in his sky. The small gestures continued. He began teaching her to ride, patient as she struggled with her fear of the massive horses. He would lift her into the saddle, his hands lingering on her waist, his body pressed close as he adjusted her position. Then he would mount his own horse, a black stallion as fierce as his master, and they would ride through the forest paths. Darius always keeping pace with her, never rushing her, his eyes constantly checking to ensure she was comfortable and happy. After one such ride, as he helped her down, her foot slipped and she tumbled forward. He caught her easily, his arms banding around her, and suddenly they were pressed together, her hands flat against his chest, his face inches from hers. For a long moment, neither of them moved, the air between them crackling with tension and want. "Celeste," he breathed, and she could see the war in his eyes, the desire fighting against his determination to let her set the pace. "Kiss me," she whispered. "Sure now, ready now. Please, Darius, kiss me." His control shattered. His mouth came down on hers, hungry and demanding, one hand fisting in her hair while the other pressed against the small of her back, molding her to him. Celeste gasped against his lips, and he deepened the kiss, his tongue sweeping into her mouth in a claiming that made her toes curl. This was nothing like the chaste kisses Thomas had given her. This was fire and passion, possession and surrender all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius rested his forehead against hers, his hands gentling their grip, but not releasing her. "I have wanted to do that since the moment you walked into my throne room, drenched and defiant, and so beautiful it hurt to look at you," he confessed. "Then why did you wait?" "Because you deserve to be courted, to be wooed, to know that you are precious to me. You are not just the Omega who saved my life, Celeste. You are the woman who owns my heart." 3 weeks passed in this strange, wonderful limbo, and Celeste found herself falling deeper every day, not just into comfort or gratitude, but into something profound and unshakable. She began to crave his presence, to listen for his footsteps in the hall. When he smiled at her, her heart would race. When he touched her, even casually, her skin would burn with awareness. He showed her his vulnerabilities, the parts of himself he hid from the world. Late at night they would meet in the library, talking until dawn about their fears and dreams. He told her about the nightmares that still plagued him, where he was back in those woods, dying, and she never came. She told him about the shame of her rejection, the way Thomas's words still sometimes echoed in her head, telling her she was worthless. "He was a fool," Darius said fiercely, pulling her into his lap, holding her close. "Blind and stupid and unworthy of even speaking your name. You are not worthless, Celeste. You are priceless. You are everything." And in those quiet moments, with his arms around her and his heart beating beneath her ear, Celeste began to believe him. She began to see herself through his eyes, and the image was beautiful. She was developing feelings for him, real and terrifying, feelings that consumed her waking thoughts and filled her dreams. And she knew, with growing certainty, that she was falling irrevocably in love with Darius Wolfguard. It was Mira who finally broached the subject, helping Celeste dress for dinner one evening. "You care for him," the older woman said, not unkindly. "Anyone with eyes can see it." Celeste's cheeks flamed. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to those who know to look. And my lady, if I may be so bold, he cares for you as well. I have served the king for many years, since he was a boy. I have never seen him like this. So attentive, so content. You make him happy." "I am afraid," Celeste admitted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "Afraid that this is temporary, that I will wake up, and it will all have been a dream. Afraid that I am not enough, that I will disappoint him." Mira's hands were gentle as she finished arranging Celeste's hair. "My lady, you must learn to see yourself as he sees you, not as a rejected Omega, but as a woman worthy of a king's devotion. The heart knows what the mind sometimes forgets. That evening, Darius took Celeste to a part of the palace she had never seen before. He led her up winding stairs to the highest tower, where a door opened onto a balcony that overlooked the entire kingdom. The view was breathtaking, the sun setting in brilliant shades of orange and gold, painting the world in fire. "I come here when I need to think," he said, standing beside her at the railing. "When the weight of the crown becomes too much, when I need to remember what I am fighting for. I have never brought anyone else here. This is my sanctuary." Celeste turned to look at him, understanding the significance of what he was sharing. "Why bring me now?" He reached out, taking her hand in his, threading their fingers together. "Because you are part of this now. Part of everything I am, everything I want to be. I wanted you to see what I see, to share this place that matters to me." The intimacy of the gesture, the vulnerability in his words, made her eyes sting with tears. "Darius, I need to tell you something. Anything." She took a breath, gathering her courage. "I am falling in love with you. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a short time, but I cannot help it. When I am with you, I feel whole in a way I never have before. You make me feel seen, valued, cherished, and it terrifies me because I have never had something this good, and I am so afraid of losing it." For a moment, he was silent, and fear gripped her heart. Had she said too much, too soon? But then he was pulling her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe, his face buried in her hair. "You will not lose me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Celeste, I am already lost to you. Completely, irreversibly lost. I have been falling in love with you since the night I woke in those woods and saw your face. I fell in love with you again when you walked into my throne room, offering your life with such quiet dignity, and I fall in love with you more every single day." She pulled back just enough to look up at him, and the love she saw blazing in his golden eyes took her breath away. "Truly, truly, completely, eternally." He cupped her face with both hands, his touch reverent. "You are my heart, Celeste. The missing piece I did not even know I was searching for. And I promise you, I will spend every day proving to you that you are exactly where you belong." This kiss was different from the one in the stables. It was slower, deeper, full of promise and devotion. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head as he explored her mouth with a thoroughness that made her melt against him. She clutched at his shoulders, needing the support as her legs threatened to give out, lost in the sensation of being loved so completely. When they finally parted, both breathless, the sun had fully set, leaving them in twilight. Darius traced his thumb across her swollen lips, his eyes dark with desire but also with something deeper, something that looked like forever. "I want to court you properly," he said. "I want to give you all the romance you were denied, all the gestures and moments that make falling in love beautiful. Will you let me?" "Yes," she whispered, her heart so full it ached. Yes to everything. That evening, Darius asked Celeste to walk with him in the moonlight. They strolled through the garden, the autumn air crisp and clean, stars glittering overhead like diamonds scattered across black velvet. He had been quieter than usual during dinner, thoughtful, and Celeste could sense something building between them, some unspoken question hanging in the air. The next weeks were a dream Celeste never wanted to wake from. Darius courted her with a dedication that left her breathless. Every morning, she found fresh flowers in her room, each variety chosen with care. He left her notes throughout the day, hidden in books or tucked under her pillow, words of affection that made her smile and blush. He planned elaborate dates, taking her on picnics in hidden glades, teaching her to dance in the ballroom after everyone had gone to bed, showing her the stars from the tower and telling her their stories. One night, he arranged for musicians to play in the garden, and he danced with her under the moonlight, holding her close as they swayed to the soft music. His hand was warm on the small of her back, his other hand cradling hers against his chest. And when she looked up at him, she saw such tenderness in his expression that it made her want to cry. "What are you thinking?" she asked softly. "That I never knew I could be this happy. that you have given me something I thought was lost to me forever. Hope, joy, a reason to smile that has nothing to do with duty or responsibility. You have given me yourself, Celeste, and it is the greatest gift I have ever received." She stretched up on her toes, pressing a soft kiss to his jaw. "You have given me the same. You have shown me that I am worthy of love, that my past does not define my future. You have made me believe in fairy tales again." He spun her out and then back into his arms, dipping her low as the music swelled. When he brought her back up, their faces were inches apart, and the desire in his eyes made heat pool in her belly. "I want you," he admitted roughly. "Not just your heart or your company, but all of you. Your body, your soul, everything you are. But I will wait until you are ready, until you are certain. I will wait forever if that is what you need." Celeste's breath caught. The truth was, she was ready, had been ready for days now. But there was something she needed to say first, something he deserved to know. "There is something you should know about me," she said quietly. "Thomas, my former betrothed, he never wanted me. He made it clear that I repulsed him as an Omega. I have never been with anyone, Darius. I do not know how to please you." His expression softened, and he pulled her closer, his hand coming up to stroke her cheek. "Oh, little Omega, you please me simply by existing. Your innocence is not something to be ashamed of. It is a gift, one I am honored you would consider sharing with me. And when the time comes, I will teach you everything. I will be so gentle with you, so careful. I will make it beautiful, I promise." The sincerity in his voice, the love shining from his eyes, dissolved the last of her fears. She knew, in that moment, that she was ready to give herself to him completely. They stopped beside a fountain, water trickling musically in the darkness, and Darius turned to face her. In the moonlight, he looked almost otherworldly, his features sharp and beautiful, his eyes gleaming gold. "Celeste, I need to tell you something." Her heart began to pound. "What is it?" He took a breath, and she realized with shock that he was nervous. The fearsome Alpha King, nervous. "When I first brought you here, I told myself I was repaying a debt, that I was offering you protection and comfort as thanks for saving my life. But I have been lying to myself." "Lying?" She felt cold suddenly, afraid of what he might say next. "The truth is, I have been searching for you for 7 years, not just because you saved my life, but because in that one night, when you sat with me in the darkness and kept death at bay with nothing but your determination and compassion, something in me recognized you. My wolf knew you, Celeste. Even then, even through the fever and pain, it knew." He stepped closer, taking both her hands in his. "You are my mate, my true mate, the one the moon goddess chose for me. I have known it from the moment I woke in those woods and saw you sleeping beside the fire, exhausted, but keeping watch. And every day since you have been here has only confirmed what I already knew in my soul. You are mine, and I am yours, if you will have me." Celeste could not breathe. True mates were rare, the stuff of legends, a bond that transcended mere attraction or compatibility. It was a connection written in the stars, blessed by the goddess herself. "But I am an Omega," she whispered. "How can an Omega be the true mate of an Alpha King?" Darius's smile was tender, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "The goddess does not make mistakes, Celeste. She gave me you because you are exactly what I need, what my soul has been searching for. Your Omega nature is not a weakness. It is a strength, a balance to my alpha dominance. You gentle my rough edges, soften my hard places. With you I am not just a king. I am a man, whole and complete." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but they were tears of joy, of wonder, of a hope so fierce it frightened her. "I feel it too," she confessed, the words trembling but true. "When I am near you, something in me settles, like I have finally found home after years of wandering. But I am afraid, Darius, afraid that I do not know how to be what you need, what a king's mate should be." He released one of her hands to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle. You already are everything I need. You do not have to be anything other than yourself. I will teach you what you need to know about court politics and royal protocol. But those are just trappings, Celeste. What matters is this. He placed her hand over his heart, and she could feel it pounding beneath her palm, strong and steady. What matters is that you are here, and you are mine, and I will spend every day proving to you that you are cherished beyond measure. Darius, she breathed, and then his lips were on hers, soft and warm and tasting of hope and promise. The kiss was gentle at first, almost reverent, but when Celeste melted into him, rising on her toes to press closer, something shifted. Darius's arm came around her waist, pulling her flush against him, and the kiss deepened, becoming something heated and desperate. Celeste had been kissed before, quick pecks from Thomas that had left her feeling nothing but uncomfortable. This was different. This was fire and lightning, connection and completion. This was coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius rested his forehead against hers. "Say yes," he murmured. "Say you will be mine, now and always. Say you will be my mate, my queen, my everything." Celeste looked up at him, at this fierce, powerful man who had shown her nothing but tenderness, who had searched for her across years and distance, who looked at her like she was precious beyond price. And she knew, with a certainty that resonated in her very bones, that this was right. This was what the goddess had intended all along. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will be yours. Now and always." The joy in his eyes was incandescent. He kissed her again and again until they were both laughing and breathless, until the world narrowed to just the two of them and the perfect, impossible rightness of their union. But happiness, Celeste would learn, was never without its challenges. The announcement of their engagement sent shockwaves through the kingdom. And Omega as the future queen? It was unprecedented, scandalous. The noble families whispered behind their hands, questioned Darius's judgment, wondered if his Omega mate had somehow bewitched him. Some were more vocal in their displeasure, petitioning the king to reconsider, suggesting more suitable matches with alpha females who could strengthen alliances and bear strong heirs. Darius met each challenge with cold fury, making it clear that any disrespect toward Celeste would be met with severe consequences. He stood before his council and declared in a voice that brooked no argument that Celeste was his chosen mate, blessed by the goddess herself, and that anyone who could not accept this was free to leave his service. Most stayed, cowed by his absolute authority, but the whispers continued. Celeste tried not to let it bother her, tried to focus on the joy of her new life, but the old insecurities were hard to silence. She began to doubt herself again, to wonder if she was truly enough, if she would only bring shame to Darius and his crown. She withdrew slightly, became quieter, and Darius noticed immediately. He found her one evening in the library, staring unseeing at a book, tears tracking silently down her cheeks. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as she finally broke, sobbing out her fears and doubts. "They are right," she gasped against his chest. "I do not belong here. I will never be what they expect, what you need. I am going to fail you." Darius's arms tightened around her, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Listen to me, Celeste. Listen carefully. You belong here because I say you do. You belong with me because the goddess herself willed it. Everyone who whispers and doubts, they do not matter. What matters is this: us, the bond we share. You are not going to fail me because you are already everything I need. Your compassion, your strength, your beautiful heart. Those are the qualities that will make you a great queen, not your designation as Omega or Alpha." He pulled back enough to look into her eyes, his own fierce and burning. "I love you, Celeste Silverwind. I am wildly, desperately in love with you, and I will challenge anyone who suggests you are anything less than perfect for me." The words hit her like a physical force. Love. He loved her. "I love you too," she whispered, the truth of it overwhelming. So much it terrifies me. Then be terrified together with me, he said, his smile crooked and heartbreakingly tender. And let us show them all what true strength looks like. The mating ceremony was held on the winter solstice, under a moon that hung full and silver in the clear night sky. The kingdom gathered, some still skeptical, some curious, some genuinely happy for their king. Celeste wore a gown of white and silver that made her look like moonlight given form, and when she walked down the aisle toward where Darius waited, she saw nothing but him. He wore ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine, his dark hair unbound, his golden eyes locked on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. When she reached him, he took her hands, and the Pack priestess began the ancient ritual that would bind them together forever. They spoke the vows that had been spoken for centuries, promising loyalty, love, protection. They offered their wrists to each other, exchanging the mating bite that would mark them as bonded, as one. When Darius's teeth sank into her wrist, Celeste felt the bond snap into place, a golden thread that connected their souls, letting her feel his emotions, his love, his absolute devotion. And when she bit him in turn, tasting his blood on her tongue, she felt his joy, his completion, the sense of rightness that mirrored her own. The priestess raised their joined hands to the crowd. Behold the Alpha King, and his true mate, blessed by the moon goddess, bound for all time. Let none seek to separate what the goddess has joined. The crowd erupted, some in genuine celebration, others in polite applause. But Celeste did not care. She only had eyes for Darius, for her mate, her love, her home. The feast that followed was a blur of faces and congratulations, of music and laughter. But eventually, as the moon reached its zenith, Darius whisked her away to his chambers, now their chambers, and finally they were alone. He was gentle with her, worshipful, taking his time to learn every inch of her body, to show her pleasures she had never imagined. And when they finally joined together completely, becoming one in body as they were now one in soul, Celeste felt a completeness she had never known existed. In Darius's arms, she was not a rejected Omega. She was powerful, beloved, home. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the windows, Darius traced idle patterns on her shoulder. "I have something for you," he murmured, reaching for something on the bedside table. It was a small box, carved from dark wood. He opened it, and there, resting on velvet, was her old necklace, the one she had lost in the woods 7 years ago, now cleaned and polished, the silver gleaming, the sapphire catching the light. "You kept it," she breathed, touching it with reverent fingers. "It was all I had of you for so long. I wore it always over my heart, a reminder of what I was searching for." He lifted it from the box, fastening it around her neck. "Now it returns to where it belongs. To you." Celeste touched the pendant, emotions overwhelming her. "I cannot believe this is real, that you are real, that this life is mine." Darius pulled her close, kissing her temple. "Believe it, my love. You are my queen now, my mate, my everything. And I promise you, every day for the rest of our lives, I will remind you of your worth, of how deeply you are loved." The months that followed their mating were not without challenges. There were those who still questioned Celeste's place, who tested her, pushed her, waited for her to fail. But Celeste had changed. The love of her mate, the security of her position, had given her a confidence she had never possessed. When Lady Blackthorn, one of the most influential nobles, suggested publicly that an Omega Queen would bring weakness to the throne, Celeste met her gaze steadily. "Strength comes in many forms, Lady Blackthorn. I may not have the physical power of an alpha, but I have survived rejection, poverty, and loss. I have chosen compassion over bitterness, hope over despair. If that is weakness, then I am happy to be weak. But I think you will find, in time, that mercy and empathy are far more powerful than you realize." The hall had gone silent, and then Darius, standing beside his throne, began to applaud. The rest of the court joined in, and Lady Blackthorn had no choice but to bow her head in acknowledgement. Slowly, grudgingly, the court began to accept their Omega Queen, They saw how Darius softened in her presence, how his decisions became more balanced, considering not just strength and strategy, but also compassion and consequence. They saw how Celeste handled petitioners with genuine care, how she established programs to help the poor and displaced, how she opened the palace to orphans and widows. They saw that she was not trying to be an alpha queen. She was being something different, something the kingdom needed without knowing it. And Darius? He was fiercely proud of her, constantly in awe of her strength. In public, he was still the fearsome alpha king, commanding and absolute. But in private, he was hers completely, devoted and tender, content to simply hold her and breathe in her scent after long days of ruling. One evening, nearly a year after their mating, Celeste found Darius on the balcony of their chambers, staring out at the mountains. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, and he covered her hands with his, pulling her close. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "About how close I came to losing this. If you had not found me in those woods, I would have died. If you had not come to offer yourself for your family's debt, I might never have found you. Every choice, every moment led us here, and I am grateful for all of it, even the painful parts, because they brought me you." Celeste pressed her cheek against his back, feeling the steady beat of his heart through the thin fabric of his shirt. "I used to think I was cursed," she admitted, "that the rejection, the loneliness, the suffering was punishment for some failing in me. But now I understand. It was all preparing me for this, for you, teaching me empathy and resilience and the value of kindness. Everything I endured made me into someone who could stand beside you, who could be what you needed." Darius turned in her arms, cupping her face. "You are everything I need and more. I love you, Celeste, more today than yesterday, more tomorrow than today, and I love you. Always." He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise, and Celeste thought about the girl she had been, lost and alone in those woods, choosing to save a stranger because it was the right thing to do. She could never have imagined then where that choice would lead, the love and joy and belonging that waited for her. 2 years after their mating, Celeste gave birth to a daughter. The labor was long and difficult, and Darius never left her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragements, his fear barely concealed behind his strong facade. When the baby finally arrived, crying lustily, with a cap of dark hair and eyes that would eventually turn the same golden amber as her father's, Darius wept openly, holding his daughter with a reverence usually reserved for sacred things. "She is perfect," he breathed, looking between the baby and Celeste with wonder. "You are both perfect." They named her Luna, for the moon goddess who had brought them together, and she became the light of their lives. As she grew, it became clear that she had inherited the best of both parents, her father's strength and her mother's compassion, and the kingdom adored her. More children followed, 2 sons who were the image of their father, strong and fierce but with their mother's gentle hearts. The palace that had once seemed cold and imposing became filled with laughter and love, with the sounds of children playing and a family thriving. On the 10th anniversary of their mating, Darius took Celeste back to the Whisperwood, to the exact spot where she had found him dying in the snow. They stood together in the clearing, now bathed in summer sunlight, so different from that desperate winter night. "Do you remember?" Darius asked, his arm around her waist. "I remember a man who needed help. I remember being terrified but unable to walk away. I remember thinking that if I could just keep him alive until morning, it would be enough. You did more than keep me alive, Celeste. You gave me a reason to live. You showed me what true strength looked like. And you have spent every day since making me a better man, a better king, a better father." Celeste leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling the bond between them humming contentedly. "We saved each other, I think. I was drowning when I came to you, lost and broken and convinced I had no value. You taught me to see myself differently, to recognize my own worth. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose, and you gave me everything." They stood in comfortable silence for a long moment, remembering the journey that had brought them here, all the pain and struggle and ultimate triumph. "Do you ever regret it?" Celeste asked softly. "Choosing an Omega as your mate? Making me your queen?" Darius pulled back, turning her to face him, his expression fierce. "Never. Not for a single moment. You are my greatest treasure, Celeste. My true mate, the love of my life, the mother of my children, the heart of my kingdom. I would choose you 1,000 times over, in every life, in every universe. You are mine, and I am yours. And that is the greatest blessing the goddess could have given me." Tears shimmered in Celeste's eyes, but they were happy tears, joyful tears. "I love you, Darius Wolfguard, my fierce king, my gentle mate, my home. And I love you, Celeste Silverwind, my compassionate queen, my strong Omega, my everything." He kissed her there, in the place where their story had truly begun, where a girl had chosen mercy and a man had found salvation. Above them, the sun shone warm and bright, and in the distance, the sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves created a symphony of life and hope. They had both been broken once, lost and alone, convinced they would never find where they belonged. But fate, or the goddess, or perhaps simply the power of compassion and love, had brought them together. And in finding each other, they had found themselves, had discovered that sometimes the people the world rejects are the ones who change it most. Celeste had offered her life to repay a debt, not knowing that the Alpha King had owed her his. But in the end, the debt had been transformed into something far more precious, into love, into family, into a future brighter than either of them had dared to dream. Years later, when Luna was grown and preparing to find her own path, she asked her mother about the necklace she always wore, the silver chain with the crescent moon and sapphire. Celeste smiled, touching the pendant that had traveled such a journey, from her neck to the forest floor, to Darius's heart, and back to her. "It is a reminder," she told her daughter, "that sometimes we lose things that seem gone forever. Sometimes we lose ourselves. But with love, with faith, with the courage to choose compassion even in darkness, we can find our way home. And sometimes, what we find is even more precious than what we lost." Luna hugged her mother tightly. "Tell me the story again, about the girl in the woods and the man she saved." And Celeste did, settling into her favorite chair with her daughter curled beside her, and told the story of how a rejected Omega and a dying prince found each other in the wilderness, and how that one night of mercy and courage changed everything. Outside the windows, the sun set in shades of gold and crimson, painting the sky with the colors of love and redemption. And in the throne room, Darius stood with his sons, teaching them what it meant to be strong and kind, fierce and compassionate, alphas who understood that true power lay not in domination, but in protection, not in cruelty, but in care. The kingdom prospered under their rule, became known not just for its military might, but for its justice, its mercy, its compassion. And at the heart of it all was an Omega Queen who had once thought herself worthless, and an Alpha King who had known better, who had seen her value when no one else could, who had loved her so completely that she learned to love herself. It was a love story written in starlight and blood, in sacrifice and salvation, in the moment a girl chose to save a stranger and a king chose to find her. It was a story of two broken souls becoming whole, of weakness becoming strength, of rejection becoming acceptance. It was their story, and it was beautiful. As twilight deepened into night, Celeste finished her tale, and Luna looked up at her with shining eyes. "Will I find a love like that, Mama? Like you and Papa?" Celeste brushed her daughter's dark hair back, seeing so much of Darius in her features, so much potential and promise. "The goddess has a plan for each of us, my darling. Your path may look different from mine, but if you lead with your heart, if you choose compassion and courage, love will find you when the time is right, just as it found me and your father, because you saved him, because we saved each other." That night, as Celeste and Darius lay in their bed, the same bed where they had shared countless nights of love and laughter and whispered dreams. Darius pulled her close. "What were you and Luna talking about today?" "Our story." She wanted to hear it again. Darius smiled against her hair. "It is a good story. It is the best story, because it is ours, and it is true, and it gave us this beautiful life. No regrets." Celeste thought about everything she had endured to reach this moment, all the pain and rejection and loneliness, and she thought about everything she had gained, the love and family and purpose that had grown from the ashes of her old life. No regrets. Not a single one. Good. Because I plan on spending the rest of our lives making sure you never have reason for any. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, as they had every night for years. Two souls perfectly matched. Two hearts beating as one. The rejected Omega and the Alpha King. Bound by fate and blessed by the goddess. Proving every day that love was the strongest magic of all. And in the quiet darkness, the moon shone down on the palace, bathing it in silver light, the goddess watching over her chosen ones, satisfied with the story she had written for them. A story of redemption and transformation, of finding home in the most unexpected places, of love that conquered all. The rejected Omega had offered her life to repay a debt, not knowing the Alpha King owed her his. But in the end, they had both paid their debts in full, in the only currency that truly mattered. In love, in loyalty, in the choice to see value where others saw only weakness, to find strength in gentleness, to build a kingdom not on fear, but on compassion. And they lived, not just happily ever after, but purposefully, meaningfully, surrounded by family and love and the certain knowledge that they had each found their missing piece, their true home, their forever. The story of Celeste Silverwind and Darius Wolfguard became legend, passed down through generations, told around fires on cold winter nights, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful magic is simply the courage to be kind, to help when help is needed, to choose love over fear. And in that legend lived the truth that every heart knows, but sometimes forgets, that we are all worthy of love, that our value is not determined by others, but by our own choices, our own compassion, our own strength, that sometimes being rejected is not an ending, but a beginning, clearing the path for us to find where we truly belong. The moon watched over them still, would watch over their children and grandchildren, generation after generation, a silent witness to the love story that began with mercy in a dark forest and bloomed into a legacy of light. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this beautiful love story. Let us know what you thought of this tale full of emotions and surprises. Tell us your name, where you're watching from, and rate this story from 0 to 10 if it touched your heart. And if you enjoyed the plot, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the amazing new stories coming soon. See you next time.